The wind whistled and howled in an unsteady melody, causing Rachel's heart to beat stronger than was natural. Thunder roared through the sky as tiny branches broke and fell from the trees around her, twisting and turning, trapped in the wind's invisible grasp. Rachel knew where she was. She was back inside the nightmare that had been haunting her. Off in the distance, Rachel heard sounds even more deafening and chilling than that of the wind. Her heart began beating in a wild frenzy as panic flooded her body and tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. Frozen with fear, she couldn't will herself to move. Then she remembered the words that were written on the muddy ground the fox kit had brought her to. Danger. Run. By some miracle, her body seemed to take over in an instinctive flight response, propelling her through the woods, away from the howls and growls, the snarls and snaps, the heart-wrenching song of the shadow wolves on the hunt. Rachel knew who they were hunting. There was only one person who didn't belong in the strange world of her dreams. Only one person trespassing in their territory who had consistently slipped out of their grasp. They wanted Rachel, and she knew they wouldn't stop the hunt until they got what they wanted. Rachel knew that very soon their hunt would end. It was only a matter of time before her luck would run out, as each nightmare brought her closer to her ultimate fate. She shuddered at the thought of death. The howls were growing increasingly louder. Her lungs burned, and her legs ached. She knew she couldn't outrun them, but she had to try. Running at full force through the trees, Rachel looked behind to see if the shadow wolves were in view, not noticing the drop just a few strides ahead. She turned her head forward, but it was too late. Her foot stepped off the edge into nothingness, as her body, now airborne, came crashing down on a steep slope. She rolled and tumbled down a good distance before landing with a thud onto her back. Her head throbbed, and a small bead of blood dripped down her forehead. She opened her mouth for air, but her lungs wouldn't inhale. The force of the fall knocked the wind right out of her. Knocked the wind right out of her chest, causing a few excruciating moments of panic before her breathing resumed. Her body ached and her head spun dizzily as she tried to make out the blur of trees overhead. Dazed and confused, she lay on the ground until she heard a rumbling of paws headed her way. Her pursuers were close, much too close, howling with feverish delight. Rachel moaned, heaving her body back onto its feet, steadying herself with her hands, still slightly disoriented from the fall. She had landed on the bank of a wide, deep river that roared violently past. A blood-curdling snarl pierced the air, followed by a low, long growl coming from the ledge from which she had just haphazardly tumbled. She recognized the shadow wolf at once. It was Trebox, his sharp teeth gleaming as his lips curled up around the corners of his mouth, forming the wicked smile Rachel had come to loathe. "You have nowhere left to run, little girl." His tone was gruff, yet playful, like that of a cat toying with the mouse before the kill. His smile widened, allowing saliva to drip freely down his jaw. Rachel's eyes flickered to the side, trying to spy the river without moving her head. Trebox noticed, chuckling at her feeble attempt to find an escape. "You can't get away," he yelled to Rachel, licking his lips in anticipation. "Although I have to admit," he paused, a hungry look in his eyes, "it would be fun to watch you try."